Good afternoon. My name is Mariana Martinez Leon, and in this video, I will talk about my experimental investigation of the effect of salt on water's boiling time that I developed during this semester in the subject Energy and Transformation 2. In the first part of this research, I describe an introduction to the topic which contains a justification and a theoretical framework. Salt is one of the most abundant minerals on Earth, and it is vital for the nutrition of living beings, so it is necessary to carry out most of the processes on the planet. Furthermore, it is a useful and ideal condiment for constant use with vast functions. For this reason, it is necessary to understand the effects of salt in our daily lives. The practicality of salt is vital for some daily activities as product creation, preventing dehydration of people, defrosting, flavoring food, and preservation. However, what is the reason why this compound is so helpful? The answer is that salt is beneficial because it causes chemical and positive reactions by mixing it with other substances. An example of its effects on other compounds is when adding salt to the water. At first, the result is not visible, but something characteristic changes in the water, its boiling point. This effect commonly happens when preparing food since it improves its flavoring and cooking. It is a fact that the mixture of water with salt causes an adjustment in the time in which the water boils. But how does adding salt affect the boiling time of the water? It is crucial to explain some fundamental concepts to understand the relation between the water's boiling time and salt. The boiling point is a characteristic of each substance when it goes from liquid to gas. In other words, it is the point at which a liquid changes its original state to a gaseous one. The state of aggregation is the phase of a matter depending on the force of attraction between its particles. The more heat energy, the more movement it will cause in the particles. The principal states are solid, liquid, and gaseous. Each substance has a different boiling point, so if the original composition of the substance is changed, it can affect this characteristic considerably. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees centigrade under normal conditions, but it depends on the pressure atmosphere. Boiling occurs when the steam pressure in the liquid is the same as the pressure exerted on the outside, so if the heat is decreased or increased, its boiling point will change. However, what is the relation of salt to the change in boiling point? It is first essential to understand what salt is to explain this research. Sodium chloride, or more commonly called salt, is a chemical compound made of chloride and sodium. According to studies, the salt particles mixed with water make the particles move more slowly, causing a drastic change in its boiling point. However, it is relevant to retake this investigation and verify that the results are correct through experimentation. The second part of the research consisted of planning the methodology. In other words, establish the variables, experimental design, materials, and method. This experiment called Water versus Salty Water will be an unifactor experiment with the objective of observing the relation between salt and the boiling point time of water. It is necessary to establish the experimental variables to ensure an accurate result and formulate a hypothesis. In this experimentation, the amount of salt will determine the boiling point of the water. Therefore, the independent variable will be the amount of salt, and the boiling time will be dependent. However, it will also be crucial to control variables such as the amount of water, heat intensity, and boiling point of water to avoid erroneous outcomes. It is also needed to establish how the variables will be measured, so they are listed in this table. The combination of the characteristic of waters and salt provoke reactions in both. One of its properties is that it loses temperature in contact with other substances. Therefore, its boiling time will increase by adding salt to the water. The factor will be the amount of salt added in three levels, which are 50, 100, and 200 grains of salt. Finally, this experiment will have 3 replications. In other words, it will be performed 3 times to confirm the results and reach a better and complete conclusion. It is vital to establish the materials and equipment necessary to complete an experiment successfully. The materials for each replication are 1 spoon, 350 grams of salt, 1.5 liters of water, 1 regular size container, 1 paper sheet or notebook, and 1 pen or something to write. The equipment is 1 stove, 3 pots of 1 liter, 1 chronometer, 1 kitchen scale, 1 thermometer, and 1 beaker of 500 milliliters. Likewise, it is imperative to follow a precise procedure to ensure valid results. The first step in this experiment is to fill each pot with 500 milliliters of water using the beaker and place it on the stove. Then, turn on the kitchen scale and enter the weight of the container. Next, add salt with a spoon into the container until the scale indicates 50 grams of salt and pour the contents into the first pot, mixing and name it pot 1. Later, place the same empty container on the scale and enter it again. Then, add salt again until the scale shows 100 grams of salt and pour the contents into the second pot, mixing and name it pot 2. Again, place the same empty container on the scale and enter it again for the last time. Then, add salt again until the kitchen scale records 200 grams of salt and pour the contents into the third pot, mixing and name it pot 3. After having the 3 pots with their respective salt and water placed on the stove, turn on the flame over high heat in each one and start the chronometer. Check the temperature of each pot with a thermometer every 20 seconds until it reaches 100 degrees centigrade in each. It is crucial to check that the thermometer only touches hot water and do not restart the chronometer. Finally, write down with a pen the time each pot reached 100 degrees centigrade on a paper sheet. In the third part of the investigation, the experimental results will be shown, gathering the data and analyzing them. In the following video, the evidence and the procedure of the experiment will be shown. After the experiment, the following results were obtained. In the first replication, the pot with 50 grams of salt boiled at 286 seconds. The 100 gram pot boiled at 357 seconds, and the 200 gram at 418 seconds. In the second replication, the first pot boiled at 257 seconds, the 100 gram boiled at 420 seconds, and the last at 480 seconds. In the third replication, the results were 294 seconds, 479 seconds, and 511 seconds. To better analyze the previous results, it is essential to capture the three pots in a graph like the one below. It can be observed that the boiling time increases as more salt contained in the pot in all replications. Therefore, we can conclude that the more salt the water has, the longer it takes to boil. The fourth and last part of the investigation is the conclusion, where the consistency and difficulties of the experiment will be evaluated. In this experiment, I got both positive results and obstacles. Seeing that these results came out as expected, the hypothesis was confirmed since, as previously predicted, the more salt the water has, the longer it will take to boil. Besides, the results coincided with the scientific investigations already carried out before, since in other research, it had been explained why salt changes the boiling time of water. Therefore, the results were positive and successful. On the other hand, there were also some complications in this experimentation. Most of the materials were easy to find. However, the thermometer was the most complicated to get since it requires one from a laboratory that resists high temperatures. In the end, I was able to borrow it from a laboratory. Later, some variables could affect the results, such as the different type and size of pots. Therefore, it would be recommended for a future experiment to use pots of the same size and model. These are the bibliographic references used for this research. Thank you very much. That would be all in this presentation.